And good afternoon and welcome to week 30 of Inside the Outhouse. Can't believe it's been 30 weeks plus a couple of weeks off since, try it again, a couple of weeks that we took off in between, but 30 episodes of Inside the Outhouse. And yeah, welcome everybody. A very small group so far this afternoon. Maybe it's not a super exciting topic, but we're going to be talking this afternoon about the AEE International Conference that occurred over the weekend. I was an attendee from Southeast Queensland in a virtual conference. So I'm going to talk about the ins and outs of that aspect probably towards the end of the session. I'm going to cover two of the workshops that I was in and lots of links and goodies for you guys that I'm going to be able to share with you around games and resources and a little bit of a snapshot on how COVID-19 is looking and affecting outdoor programs in the US from a fairly big pool of staff. Firstly, I'll throw to Sri. That's hard to say at this point in the afternoon for a welcome to the country.
In the spirit of reconciliation, Inside the Outhouse acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
Thanks, Shuri. I'd just like to definitely acknowledge the Outhouse management team that's with us today. Suri, Pete Smith is in an isolated spot. I'm hosting today. Ellen Barker is away and Henry Friend couldn't join us today either. But we're going to plug on and talk about my experiences in a virtual Zoom session that ran for 3 days. So I'm looking a little bit tired, looking a little bit stressed. I actually did the whole conference thing by actually going to a conference location, but and having some time away so I had better reception. So I'm just going to share my screen. We'll start from here. And hopefully this all works. Excellent. Can everyone see me? I'm wearing the wrong shirt today, but this is sort of the start. Everyone can still hear. Cool. All right. So it's the AEE conference. It's I've actually been once before about 2009. So quite a few years ago. There's me attending in the conference right next to Michelle Cummings, and in one of the sessions we're going to talk about today. The burning question of the week, I got very excited about this because I watched the keynote from the Kurt Hahn address about 14 hours ago. And we're going to come back to the burning questions because they relate to the link I shared earlier today from that. So if you haven't managed to actually see the keynote that I shared in the links today through the agenda, I think we'll have to come back to it another time and talk about it. But it was an amazing experience. I'll just scroll on to the next. The Association for Experiential Education exists to expand educators and practitioners' capacity to enrich lives through the philosophy and principles of experiential education. So this is the peer industry group effectively in North America. So they're covering mostly, definitely the United States and Canada. And they're definitely a large user base of experiential educators, outdoor educators, instructors, camp professionals. They do accreditation, professional development, and have lots of conferences every year. They traditionally always have their international conference towards the end of this year. And this year, because of COVID and the effects of not being able to travel, they've run it via Zoom. It goes back to 1972, so it's as old as I am. It has a huge amount of networking and grassroots relationships. So I felt it was really apt that we went and actually, I went and joined in this weekend with it, and yeah, it was pretty good. I'm just going to cover through these really quick because they're not super interesting. These are just clips again from Zoom. It's an interesting aspect of being able to sit in a Zoom session and grab clips as you go. They have 1,600 active members, and this year they've increased their international membership significantly, possibly because they've engaged quite a bit with the international community through roundtables, which they've been scheduling at 7 a.m. New York time, which is about 9 p.m. here. I did introduce the Outhouse and our grassroots movement to a lot of the workshops that I went to, and was hoping we get a few in tonight, but it's going to be midnight in New York City. So hopefully not too many after a big week of conferencing.
It was the city that never sleeps, David.
They are the city that never sleeps, but the fact that it's just like any conference. If you've ever been to a international conference or any sort of conference that's more than a day, you get so exhausted. And Zoom conferences are no different. Their last one was obviously last year for 3 days in Spokane, and had about 1,034 attendees. So if you compare that to the 350 I think we had at the last national conference here in Australia, it's a fairly big gathering of people of like-mindedness. They have 4 regions. They have 4 conferences. You can see some of the details there if I get my head out of the way. I was one of those people in the roundtable calls, and they've had lots of webinars around COVID aspects, and also just general out there and catching up with different people in the industry. They have quite a few areas. It's all geographically, they love their maps over in the States, obviously, the color coding. And they have an international zone as well, and I was able to sit in on an international call or an international roundtable group for Asian Pacific. So they're involved in regionally coordinating events, publishing newsletters, and all the sort of social media stuff to network. If you've got any questions, just throw them in the chat room, by the way, or just unmute yourselves. Some of the information that came out that's directly applicable to us before I get into the conference content would be in 2022, the Asia Pacific conference has now been rescheduled. I think for a lot of pandemic reasons, they've put it off for another year. Initially, it was scheduled for this year, but obviously it wasn't going to happen. The dates that you want to be looking at for those, it's in Hong Kong, the 11th to the 13th of pre-conference dates, 8th to the 10th. It's going to be co-hosted by the ISF Academy, which I believe is a school location in Hong Kong. It's a week after the Chinese New Year, so the promotion in the chat was all about the fact that it would be cheaper accommodation. They're expecting about 500 participants from all across Asia. 12 to 18 workshops are estimated to be staged, and a large presenter base is always actually part of the history with the Asian conference, which has occurred several times, but a regional focus, so not so American-centric as this conference potentially was. You can definitely contact Sherry Bagley, who's the executive officer at AEE, or Trevor Wong was the guy on the ground talking it up. And the website is there, and I can share these links later so you guys can have a look. So on to, I registered for 7 workshops between Friday night, I think at like 3 AM was the first workshop, which was really great for my Saturday activities of football refereeing and various things. But a couple of ones that really were great was this one, again with Michelle Cummings hosting, Matthew Brody, you can see in the top, and Trevor Dunlap. Matthew's an academic at Winster University. Trevor has his own development company, and Michelle Cummings will be known to quite a few of you as the big wheel at Training Wheels, which is a training development company for experiential educators, effectively. They ran a workshop that was based around a book that's going to be out very shortly, I believe, talking about taking board games and the idea of board games and regular games you could find in a toy store. Again, fairly American-centric toy store, some of these games I'd never heard of, but being able to take these games and then adapt them into a team building environment that might have to be immersively or practically remote or virtual because of COVID-19. So in the States, there's still a huge amount of, not so much lockdown, but no outdoor activity is happening. So therefore no programs are happening except the stuff that's really gone virtual. And so this is Michelle and her crew's response to that. Initially, they had created a book that just talked about taking board games and using them in a larger scale. So taking them into a classroom environment or into a playground environment and using board games that are maximum sized and made into initiatives that you can use and have a relationship with. They've now gone another step further and taken this into actually making this stuff virtual, which is just amazing from the perspective of being able to obviously facilitate programming through Zoom sessions like we're doing today. I'll go on to this one. So what we did within the workshop, there was about 50 people in this particular 3-hour workshop on Saturday evening my time. We can actually come if we want. We're a really small group. We can jump into this site right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to unshare and go into the site. So if you go on to, and I'll put the link down here. Sorry, I should have done that earlier. So everyone can just click on the link. 1 second. There we go. Here's the link. If everyone clicks on the link, it should bring up. So this is a Google site. And basically, this is a free resource of about 8 games that have actually been designed. And we were playing with them as a group. And the way the conference facilitators ran this was we went into breakout groups. So breakout rooms of 4 or 5 people. We went to one of and we selected a breakout room based upon the game. So if I just go into my link here now. Can everyone see the website? Yep, okay, excellent. So, and I know this might crash some people's internet connection, so it's all great. So if you scroll down to part 1, immersive learning materials, all right, you don't need the way to access. And if we go to just the first one, we click on 4 to win. And it might throw you back up the page, but if you just click on it, and it will open as a Google Docs in a new window. As soon as I can get mine to work, here we go. Now, you should see people start to come in as, you don't need to have a Google account for this. It's all anonymous logins. And this is an amazing feature that was used several times within the conference in different workshops. So I'm just going to unshare my PowerPoint here. And I'm just going to share my screen so you can all actually see what I'm looking at. And I'm going to go into here. Can everyone see this?
David, how do we get there? I missed.
So I've put the link in the chat.
Yeah, I've got that, and then but while I was doing while I was popping the link,
scroll down to part 1. We're not going to spend too much time here. You guys can go and play this in your own time, but I'm going to sort of show you what they did with it as in a way to actually, they demoed it as a way you would actually play with a bunch of students or adults or whatever it was if you're using this in a practical way. Did you get to it, Alan?
So is it game 1?
Yeah, so
is that what I'm waiting for?
Yep, you just go to breakout room 1.
Okay, got it.
You got it? Excellent. All right, I'm going to just go.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Hold on, let's go back to mine. Come on. Sorry, 1 second. Hate it when I do that. All right, let's try this again. That screen, and I want that one. There we go. All right, so everyone can see this. So within there, this is like a PowerPoint deck. So if you've never played with Google Slides, it's just like PowerPoint. It's their version of it. And they've set this tool up as an anonymous tool. So you can go in and you can be on any one of these slides collaboratively with other people that you've invited into the group. Is everybody there with me, or have we dropped out people? Because it's frustrating. And this was part of the interesting part of a collaborative platform using Zoom. You had to be in Zoom, and then you had to also be within the area. So if you go to the first screen, the breakout groups were given 15 minutes. Somebody sort of had to read through all the details really quickly and learn the game. And then basically there was also an embedded video here. So that would actually now start to play.
Are you game?
So this is actually a game called
Instant Classic.
Zadagi, right? But they've renamed it.
Choose your favorite color and get one blocking white tile. Start by placing your color tile next to the white starter tile, and then take turns. The objective is to align 4 squares in a row. Play together to block others. The first to align 4 squares in a row wins.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard that very well on my connection here, but it's like Connect 4. You start at the white square and you've got to get 4 squares in a row in whatever shape or whatever alignment you want. And then you can block other people. So the idea is if we all go now into slide 2, you can see on slide 2, and I'm just sharing my screen here so you can see it as you're going. Basically, they've created, the folks who had this presentation have created these decks that you can go and play on collaboratively. So, if Dom was blue and Shuri was green and Mark was red and Alan was whatever the other color is in the corner there, yellow, you then take it in turns to then play a game in turn. Okay, so if we go to down the deck 5, let's actually have a game. All right, so this is a deck that's actually brand new, so it's an extra board game. So everyone go to deck 5. I'm just going to now delete that start. Sorry, I'm going to delete the whole thing. All right, so we're now ready to play. All right, so let's go top. So green, yellow, blue, red, and let's have a game. So you're just going to basically grab a block and place it. Yellow, blue. Who was blue? I think that's Alan. Excellent. All right. So again, so we go back to green now. So green's got 2. So you got to now think about the strategy. What would you now do? And if it helps, folks, unmute yourself so you can actually have that engagement, because that's part of the process. Because remember, this is a collaborative game or a competitive game, depending on how you frame it, online.
Who's red?
I think that's me.
I think that's Mark.
Okay.
All right, so the blue's got 3. Maybe you got to take it in turns.
Hey, blue's going out of turn.
Oh, sorry, I was cheating. That's one way to win, but.
Yes.
All right, yellow, I think, is next.
All right.
I'm going. I'm thinking green's more opportunities here.
Yeah, good. There we go. Excellent.
All right.
Blue's
No,
what?
it's got-
Blue already went, so now it's
Okay,
red.
so it's red. Yep, pardon me.
Hey, red.
Yes.
It's unnecessary.
Yeah, right.
There you go, too.
Oh, goodness gracious. That's what I get for cheating.
Yellow?
Oh.
Watch out. Your yellow's looking pretty good there.
Yeah, don't give it away, David. That's not fair.
I'm refereeing the game again. Yes.
Oops, who put red in there? I did.
The blue, is it you? Blue's already gone?
Well, wasn't it blue, yellow? Sorry, green, yellow, blue, red?
Green, yellow, blue, red. So I'm going left, right, top to bottom.
So
Yeah.
now
Let
it's
me
back
tell
to
you-
green again.
Let me tell you guys, it's a great game for the observer.
Okay, so you get the concept. So here's what they're doing with this is and I'll jump back to some other slides. You can go and so this link is free, and I think this website will be up until they take it down. But at this point in time, it's there for people to go in. So you could go in, and I'll just show you over here. File. You could make a copy of the entire presentation here, and then use this. It's already been created by these guys, and they've given it to the community freely. These are games that they're putting into their book. These are games that they're currently using with actual clients in remote location through Zoom meetings to have, team building activities. So, if you think about it, this would be one about, and we were challenged as a experiential education group of peers to go, all right, so play the game and then, talk about debrief the game about, all right, so who was cheating? Who won? Was it fun? How do you modify the game? How do you modify it for the next round? And then they had this system where one of the people in the breakout room would stay in the game for the next round, explain it to the next group of newcomers, but they would have to apply a new rule. All right, that was modified by the game. So I'll come back to that in a second, and I'll go back to my other screen. 1 second. Hopefully I can get this to work again. All right, I knew that would happen. Scroll through real quick. And they talked about it in terms of game theory. So there's about 8 games there, and they're all very different. A lot of them, some of them are word games, some of them are puzzle games, some of them are like Tetris. So feel free to click through, play those in your own time later today, and you can save those decks as your own. But the 3 people who are presenting talked about it in terms of different aspects. So game theory, why we want to play. Once the learner starts, he or she does not want to stop until the game is over, and they referred to that from academic intrinsic motivation, and describe the 4 sources being challenge, curiosity, control, and fantasy. Definitely relates into the goals. This slide didn't come up very well when I captured it, but recognize and apply essential design elements. So there's definitely design elements within this that they have to think about intentionally to put together these games that are then going to be out there in the wild. Recognize and apply game design elements into revisioning of existing resources, and utilizing experiential theory to develop a new structure and overcome it for an existing game or learning tool. So they're thinking really intentionally about, these aren't just for fun, these are actually for intentional purposes for the facilitator who's hosting the Zoom session to actually facilitate those outcomes, or to empower somebody within the breakout room, if it's how you're doing it, to facilitate those outcomes on behalf of you by having instructions with it. A little bit here about the rules and how that changes gameplay experiences and achieving different objectives. Okay, which rules detracted from gameplay experiences. So this is the sort of stuff that we do think about a little bit in terms of when we're out there facilitating an initiatives game or a challenge by choice game or a tag game. What other rules could be applied to have a positive impact on the gameplay? So they're really thinking about this and sharing that with the group, which is amazing, because it means that we can justify as educators to, I guess, key stakeholders or budgets and program design while we're doing something in a Zoom session that looks like it's a Tetris game. Yeah. Again, why we want to play, provide assessment for their performance. Players are not necessarily competing against each other, and the different games have different aspects. So I definitely impart you to take the link and share it with as many people as you can and talk about it, because it's really interesting. And then at the very end of that, and we had like a middle section, then we went back and played more games, which was again fun, but I had to go to another session. This is when they referenced Lucknow and Nadler, again, great experiential educators, and brought the reasoning behind an online virtual experience into outdoor ed experiential theory and how that actually works. And Michelle talked to that section there. Anybody got any questions about that? Because here's the stuff I got today from Michelle Cummings. Networking is what conferences are all about. And by being in the session, and I'd actually been in a conference with Michelle previously when she toured Australia, and I've seen her overseas as well. And she's one of these bubbly, super energetic persons in life, in real life, and she is the same. I linked into her and sent her a message saying, I'm going to share this with a group of Aussies today. Is it okay? And then she said, yes. And here's some more resources. So if you click on that link, you've got to give them your email address and your name. And it'd be nice to give one that's okay for them. They're just going to send you some newsletters, I'd say, and put you on their mailing list. That's the resources from the workshop. And as it says there at the bottom, it has multiple experiential activities adapted from games found in the toy aisle. So that's the workshop handouts, and probably again links to that site again. By all means, they were really happy for people to go into the Google slides and take a copy and then have that in your own version, and then be able to share that. I guess if you just give credit where credit's due, that'd be great. So great networking already from just one session out of the 6 I attended. The second session, because I don't want to bore you too long, and I just want to get through a bunch of stuff real quickly, was a study of the impact of the coronavirus on outdoor adventure, recreation, and education. You can read this all yourself, but basically it's an industry peer group with a lot of academics behind them, including Cheryl Bagley, who's the executive officer of the AEE, and some of those names you might know. Steve Smith was actually in the breakout rooms that I went into from this workshop. Again, they had an introduction about a study that they've started formulating, and the Survey Monkey link I will put into the chat right now. 1 second. Just go and find that again because I keep losing it. It's not there. 8,000, too many windows open today. There it is. And back to Zoom. Yep, and here's the survey. It's already there. Sorry, you guys are all on top of it. So again, a very diverse group of internationals and Americans in the discussion. Basically, the purpose of the project is to study and collect evidence of program leadership on near and long-term viability of their programs, and the changes they have made or likely to make in response to COVID-19, and how they envision sustaining over the next 1 to 3 years. Again, that's a slide from the presentation. Dom, I think for you, and I mentioned Quarf several times in the chat. This is again one of the ones where we went to breakout rooms, and I went into the risk management one with Steve Smith, and it was the usual thing of, all right, who's got a story about how you're getting back to work or how you're not? And I said, hey, I'm from Australia, and yeah, we're back to work, and here's why. And I referenced Quarf, and I referenced COVID safety plans and all that type of stuff. And the Americans in the group were blown away by the fact that we had that actually happening, and they all wanted to immigrate straight away, because the general feeling I got from that was just an hour workshop, an hour and a half, I think, was that there's not a lot of direction or support from government authorities. It's every man for themselves. And because ultimately, I guess they don't have the pandemic yet under control, they're still really grappling with how do we clean equipment, how do we sanitize ropes and high rope scores, how do we use those, how do we deal with helmets, all that type of stuff. So there was a lot of frustration in the room. I was really, I guess, thankful that I could share some good news stories from the Southern Hemisphere. Again, this is me at 6 a.m. in the morning talking about that. So it probably wasn't super clear, but it was a definite interesting topic to discuss. And they're taking it from a multiple number of, I haven't done the survey myself yet. We will send the link out again through our channels later today. But from a resilience perspective, from a risk perspective, from a wilderness operators perspective, they're looking at it from a very broad area. You can see Steve Smith in the chat room here. He was the facilitator who was talking about emergent risks as we manage COVID-19 and looking at how we can use models to apply to that. Again, they seem to be very much at a theoretical level. They don't seem to have drilled down to the level of being able to produce plans that would allow them to return under a government sanctioned policy. So, yeah. Anyone got any questions about that?
I'm just wondering, mate, if it might be a consultancy opportunity for some of us to help them with that stuff and see what we can do.
I think so. I think there's a huge, I shared our resources, and thanks very much to Cherie. Again, those resources online on our website. I shared it within the risk management. I mean, it got shared again back into the main chat, and people were like, and I don't know if we had a big bump on our website, but people going, this is amazing stuff to actually be able to access, because they don't have the stuff. Equally so, some of the Europeans who are in the discussions were saying the same sort of stuff. They're either still in lockdown or they can't function yet because the pandemic hasn't subsided enough for them to be able to return to normal operation.
Yeah, I spoke to Robbie at PGL Kindillan a little while back, and he was saying for a little while, because PGL's other Australian operations are in Victoria, for a while, PGL Kindillan was the only PGL site in operation. All their others, because they're in Europe, in France and UK, were closed down. And he was saying there was a whole lot of focus on what's going on right here for them as far as when they might get back into action as well. So I think it is going to have some ripples overseas as well, what we can do. And
it's, when you get into a Zoom conference and there's a bunch of famous names and faces you actually recognize from academic papers or books, and it's just like going to any international conference, you do see your gurus, your heroes of the industry. I know that I haven't actually watched it yet, but I'm going to jump on Rick Curtis's risk management session, but that was 6 hours worth of content, and I couldn't do that at 3 in the morning. But the rippling effect of suddenly we're a very close organization or a close industry because we're just in a Zoom session again, similar to what we've been doing here with the Outhaus for 30 weeks. So overall impressions, I'm just sort of winding this up so I don't bore you all to tears about my experience. I'll share the dashboard shortly so you guys can see actually what it looked like in terms of how they presented it. I believe from hearing the executive officer speak about this, they've actually created this either in-house or they've purchased the platform, and they're going to use this to facilitate all of their regional conferences, which are significant in number, both in attendees and throughout the next year, because again, they're still pretty much not able to meet in person. It's an excellent platform and it worked on multiple devices. And great FAQ and dummies guide. So I'll show all that. And they had interactive networking spaces. The forums, let me just unshare this and I'll show you what I'm actually talking about. Instead of me just rabbiting on as normal. Where are we? Show my other one. There we go. That's one I want. Sorry. Technical difficulties, always the way.
Hey, David, is that the Smoky Mountains behind you?
I'm not sure, Pete. That's one of the backgrounds they actually shared to anybody who wanted it. I think mostly for there we go. Attendee dashboard. It's one of the backgrounds that they actually offered attendees to use as a background in their Zoom sessions. And interestingly enough, a lot of the attendees didn't bother with a background. They just had their bookcase or their wall or their office or whatever behind. And I guess we're getting into the discussion point about, can everyone see this, by the way? Can everyone, I've lost everybody.
Yeah, I can see it, David.
Okay, you can see my login. All right, cool. So this is the platform, and it's just basically a regular website as far as what I can tell. And basically, they had, again, this has been now adapted because we're post the program. There's a how-to video for attendees. Some lovely pictures here. Obviously, feedback forms now, but the on-demand library is now where all of the resources. So the entire presentations, workshops, and keynotes that I couldn't get to, or because I was asleep, are actually available for me to watch. And they'll be up there until the 1st of January. So, I'll have a little bit of time now to go through it all. They had, these are all links into, they had your own schedule, obviously on-demand presentations, you can make bookmarks. They had forums, and I'll just come back to my other screen. I've got my PowerPoint again. Sorry, I'll have to just open that once again. And we go through that. So they had some forums that looked very old school. So this is, like Web 2.0. It wasn't very exciting. And this is actually captured from today. There wasn't much discussion there. They had a virtual platform environment where you were a little Emoto icon, like a little Mario brother, and you walked around and you were on a Zoom session, effectively, where your camera was turned on. So when you encountered another little Mario brother type person, it was another delegate. And if you got close enough, you could then talk to them. And you would wander around this sort of adventure playground. It wasn't huge. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to capture any screen grabs so that I should have, but I just sort of ran out of time and the website is now down because the session's over. But that was an interesting way to network people, and they'd have specialized times during the program. Again, it was terribly timed for Australian viewers to sort of go into that space and network together and meet people and talk about stuff and share ideas and whatever. Some of the really other good takeaways, this was something called, and I'm just going to go back to my last slide. This is called a Jamboard. So this is, again, if you Google Jamboard, it's a Google product. And this is the way that they did a lot. Some of the conferences, some of the workshops, let me say, some of the workshops did feedback. So you might have a Jamboard and they're just Post-it notes. So you go in and you might have a welcome Jamboard and you'd put your name in there. So instead of putting your name into the chat or saying where you're from, and you still had that. So I had my name there, and you had your pronouns, and I put Australia. You would do it on a Jamboard, and so you could say where you're from and what you wanted out of that session, and then they could share that just like I'm doing here This is obviously a picture of one of the ones I participated in as a takeaway at the end. So again, this is a free tool, I believe, probably under educational licensing more than anything that Google supplies. And it's a great service, I think, that we could incorporate into other future conference events that we might be having. There was great instant support. I emailed the contact point about the fact that I was in a Zoom meeting where the chat had been locked down, so you could only chat to the host, and there were 40 people in a networking environment. And I said, "Can you please fix that? I want to talk to other people and want to post links and stuff into the chat." And within 3 minutes, they'd solved it for us. And it was just obviously a setting that somebody had not remembered to turn on properly through their hosting service. It was all run through Zoom, just like this is, and bandwidth seemed to be an issue for presenters and delegates. The link I posted to the keynote, the keynote presenter twice lost connectivity. So it was interesting that was happening, and interesting that it was happening quite a bit to the Americans as well. It seems like their internet probably isn't as good as ours. It's an interesting idea about they're looking forward to 2021 and using this type of platform. I was hoping Laurie would come in today and maybe have a chat about whether or not they were looking, what platform they were going to use within the National Outdoor Education Conference next year. But AEE have definitely gone ahead leaps and bounds, and I've probably set a pretty good standard here. It was, I'm just going to stop sharing that and just go back to regular view. That's it, folks, as far as what I had to share today. Has anyone got any questions? It's a pretty boring, sort of dry, sort of conferencey type topic, but the actual information that was shared there within the conference content was probably equivalent to what you'd get if you were actually physically at the conference. I went away to a hotel room, so I had good Wi-Fi internet access and could be away from my housemate, so I wasn't waking her at 3 in the morning and getting kicked out of the house. But aside from that, I think it was a pretty worthwhile experience. It was just difficult for us to be in the wrong time zone. Anyone got any questions?
I'll say it wasn't boring, David, so stop saying that. Everybody wouldn't be here if they were bored by it.
I've only got 7 people in the room, so happy to engage.
All right. I think, yeah, anyway. I would like to see could you show us the platform again?
Yeah, for sure. Hold on.
Having done a virtual expo, like mini conference with another project I was working with, I'd find it really interesting to see what type of system that they did use for this, because this looks way better than the thing that we used. And then the idea that you're telling me about the little people and how they met each other, that's really cool.
Yeah, so as I said, I didn't capture that, unfortunately. And that was called, I don't think it's even showing up here anymore. I've closed all the other windows. Yeah, no, I can't even see that anymore. But really cool. it just looks like a website from my perspective, but there's a lot more on the back end there, I'm certain. Okay. If I open one of these, I'm not sure if I open a new window, can you see that new window?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I've currently got access to until January. Again, pretty pictures and lots of stuff there, and it's got the a lovely map of where everyone's. It was actually 13 Australians attending. I didn't meet any of them at any point, but a bunch of other people actually did supposedly register and turn up. Now I think I've been logged out. That's why I haven't got.
That's okay. Can you go to the scheduling thing again?
Yeah, hold on. Let me just go back. I can show that, I think. Hold on. No, hold on. I've been logged out. That's why.
Okay.
Hold on. I'll just stop the share and log back in and then try again. 1 second.
Sorry, if anybody else has questions, go ahead.
Here we go. Let's try again. All right.
While you're sorting that out.
Oh, no, don't do that. Oh, there, right there. Hold on. Now, I was just complaining about how good I am at Zoom sessions.
Okay, Pete, did you have a question?
I just had a comment. I think it's interesting at a large international conference like this that the reference they had for the effectiveness of experiential education was from 1992. I just think that's quite an old reference for the effectiveness of experiential education in almost 2021.
Yeah, you're talking about the together, the sort of the keynote, or something I've shown you, Pete?
It was a table with all that stuff on it. And
okay. So the Lucknow, yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
I think that was just Michelle's attempt at having a component within the middle of the presentation that was 3 hours long that brought game theory and the other stuff about design and about bringing together design elements into an online learning space for these games to bring it into an outdoor ed context so that it could sort of be justified. I did find it quite interesting myself, given that I've got the books and I've read that stuff. If you can see here again now, Cherie, my dashboard, there's nothing in the schedule here, but it had all the things on. But you could easily navigate to different areas. Connection Expo. So this is how they got sponsorship happening. I actually didn't even go in here, but again, there's training wheels, different Sierra Club. I spoke to a guy from the Sierra Club. Project Adventure. Plamio was a sponsor as well. And again, I'd say if you click through on these links, that will take you to a Plamio specific conference webpage that they've set up. And poster presentations. Didn't spend a lot of time in here. Again, these were designed as short micro presentations that are only for a really short amount of time. So sort of one of those sort of, they've done it at a few outdoor ed conferences in Australia where you have a 3-minute spiel, or like an elevator pitch. And so you've got a topic and you present it. So they've got a few of those in here that, again, I can still go in and look at. Quite a few. A big focus on resilience, obviously, I think as a result of COVID, and I think that's pretty much it. I showed you the forums already, so that's all that's in there at the moment. Yeah, it could be that. I don't know. I don't know which platform it is, Mark, actually, so I wouldn't have a clue. But I can definitely find out and ask. Now we've got a few minutes. I'd be happy to share a few minutes of the keynote that I was referencing. If people are happy to sit back and listen for a few minutes, he's quite. Did people manage to see the keynote?
Some of it, Mike, but it did drop out a couple of times. And
well, it's the last 7 minutes that I've actually referenced that is quite interesting. If people are happy, maybe I can share that for a little bit, and then if people, unless people have other things to do, or
yeah, please can you share it? I can't find the video to it, David. I can find the write up.
Yeah, it's an unlisted.
But I can't find the video.
It's an unlisted YouTube video. And
could you share the link? Brilliant.
Ladies and gents, I'm going to jump out. Have a nice day. Thanks very much. Nice to see you all. See you later.
Thanks, Pete. Okay. All right, I'm just going to go. Oh, no, come on. Go back. All right, I'm there. I'll just share this and we'll have a bit of a look. And
get to the present here now. That's the
only
real thing. The choice we make is whether we want to bring our conditioning or our consciousness into play to our professionalism. I'd like to swing back to Colin's model to build the relevance of this consciousness. We have seen the inner world of the participant. That is an area of no control. Susan Kowalik says, emotions are the gateway to learning. How they feel is how they will learn. If we cannot will our participants to feel good about what we present to them, that's a choice they make. They have the key to that part of the lock. So what do we have control over? Our area of control is the outer world. That is where participants encounter the what they are doing, where and with whom they're doing it. They also meet who is doing it. I'm seeing that we have paid a lot of attention to the what and the where. We think that the key to invite change is powerful experiences and hope that something will happen. And I see that the who is a huge part of how participants receive the experience. A quote that comes to mind is, consciously we teach what we know, unconsciously we teach who we are. I seriously think all of us need to pay more attention to who we are. The who we are can shift only when we expand that bubble of consciousness to be able to receive our audiences in the present. That means parking our own biases, prejudices, opinions, and receiving what is with our participants in the present. One last story to finish. I had this opportunity to do some work with Matt Nink and the Global Youth Leadership Institute with young adults in Costa Rica some years ago. The gathering was opened with an hour-long chat with the group by a gentleman who I remember as Eric Lillian Stolman. I have not been able to find him since. He did his thing and left me in the middle of what has been the longest storm. I don't know if he said all this, but this is what I got from it. And these are my 4 mantras that remind me of what could be. Another guru whose words led me from my darkness to the light. So here are my 4 mantras. If you want to learn anything at all, 1, get uncomfortable. That is where the learning is. 2, answers to the big ones lie with everyone. Everyone has a solution to another's big problems in life. When you have a challenge in your life that you feel you cannot resolve alone, go ask another. They will offer you a solution. 3, we are a lot more alike than we think. You know, we often think we are unique, and I'm sure we are, but not that different from one another. Ask 25 people for a solution to a problem, and you will maybe get 4 different ones. Something to remember when we work with groups. And 4, we don't always live by our values. Give. This last one, I've been making new meaning over the years. It's easy to point a finger at another when what they say or do disagrees with you. Much easier and less violent to forgive, because we also often enough fail to live by our own values. So forgive others, forgive yourself. It'll be a much gentler world. I would like to leave you with a couple of questions.
3 questions.
1, do you have a personal philosophy about your practice? 2, Do your gurus know about what they have done for you? How will you share your gratitude for what they did for you or said to you that changed the way you see your world today? And 3, what will you do to shine the light on the ignorance in your life? Do it today. Stay safe, keep others safe, and have a wonderful, enlightening life ahead. Thank you very much. Namaste.
So yeah, that was quite inspirational. Let me just stop that there. The whole, it's an hour and a half, and I'll put the link again into the chat here. It's an unlisted YouTube video at the moment, but it's a keynote address, so it should be able to be shared around the place. I'm just going to put it in here. Definitely worth it. He does drop out. The gentleman involved, Vishwash, is on LinkedIn and is incredibly everywhere in India as far as experiential education. He has an amazing backstory. If you haven't watched the whole of the video, definitely worth an hour and a half of your time, even though he drops out at some point. And there are 2 or 3 other keynotes I haven't even gotten to yet, but this is the one that definitely was interesting for me. I've actually met him in a previous AEE forum workshop during the pandemic, where he jumped in again through AEE's hosting of a Zoom session. And he runs an experiential education postgraduate course that's all online as well, which is supposedly amazing. That runs for about 6 months. So definitely somebody to look up on LinkedIn and on Facebook as well. Yeah, that's all I've got today. I hope the 7 people who were here enjoyed it, and we'll post this up. And yeah, definitely my plug. Wasn't sponsored by anybody. I just did it off my own bat. But definitely AEE is a good organization to join. They have access to academic journals and lots of networking opportunities if you're ever looking for making connections outside of your immediate bubble. And they're definitely a national or international organization at this point. Thanks very much, folks. I'll ask.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.